Today we shall begin with something that has been long requested by various viewers in the comments and on the round table, surprisingly. And while this idea can be done seriously, we did have a pretty silly idea a while ago, haven't I? Which somewhat overshadows our ability to take this one completely seriously. Nevertheless, we hope you enjoy it. Our story takes place on Frieza Planet 79, shortly after Vegeta's return from Earth. Or, to put it another way, more bluntly, forcefully retreated with his tail between his legs, if he still had one. Kui was pleased because he had a minor rivalry with the prince, despite the fact that he was still stronger at this point. That, and he despised Saiyans for no apparent reason. He just did. Maybe because they appeared to him to be oafish brutes, so yeah, that was a good enough reason to hate them. They were also stupid enough to not notice what had happened to their planet, even now after all these years, after many chances to find out the truth or to simply ask somebody. Because Kui was well aware of what Frieza had done to that planet, to the Saiyan race and the homeworld, leaving only a few of the strongest to serve him specifically. Perhaps in another reality, the similarity will lead to Vegeta and Kui developing a mutual understanding and respect towards one another, but this was not going to be happening here. No. Not only was the prince defeated by a low-class Saiyan, which Kui understood was supposed to be some kind of crude way to rank his power, but he also lost both Raditz and Nappa, his underlings, reducing the number of monkeys in Frieza's servitude to just one, the prince. That meant his opponent was a complete and total failure. Everyone knew what happened to failures under Frieza. Kui then noticed that the prince was looking deep in thought as he exited his healing chamber, leaving his scouter with the scientists, which was unusual for those brutish monkeys. They were usually attached to those things 24/7. He decided to make fun of Vegeta's failure. After all, no one said he couldn't have some fun.
Oh my god, Vegeta! I heard you had a great time on planet Earth. Where have your lackeys gone, Oh, please don't tell me you lost both of them.
I don't know what to say to you, Kui. I don't have time to waste on idiots like you. Kui didn't let that brushing off and minor insult bother him, though. Instead, he firmly placed his hand on the prince's shoulder, doubling down on the efforts.
Wait a second, Vegeta. I thought I should let you know this. Frieza is not pleased with you or your attitude as of late.
Is that so? Perhaps Frieza should try and actually tell me in person, instead of you doing it for him.
Oh, you have a big mouth, don't you? But you're trying to bite more than you can chew, Prince. Again, you just don't get it, do you? Frieza is displeased with you.
Enough babbling! Tell me! Where is Frieza right now?
Oh, he took a little trip to, planet Namek.
Kui smiled broadly. This was not the answer that Vegeta had wanted to hear. And Kui took pleasure in seeing Vegeta looking stressed.
Oh, did you hope to find those Dragon Balls first, Vegeta? I don't think you realize how inferior you really are. Frieza's going to track them down long before you can, gain immortality, and then destroy the planet.
Vegeta was not paying attention to what Kui was saying at this point, and he began a mad dash down the corridor. He jumped towards the Saiyan pod and left the base as soon as he had received his scouter from one of the scientists. Interesting, thought Kui. Vegeta was indeed making a run for the Dragon Balls. Indeed, that needed to be reported to Frieza. And indeed, Kui was certain he would be the one who would do it, seeing what he stood to gain from pursuing a renegade Saiyan to boot. And just as he had predicted, he was given orders to hunt Vegeta down freely on Namek. So far, so good. But there was one caveat to all of this. One of the doctors treating Vegeta stopped Kui before he left.
Watch out, Kui! I know you were the stronger of the two for the longest time, but that may no longer be the case. What? What exactly do you mean? Speak up! He lost on Earth! What changed?
The scientist let out a loud gulp.
Well, when we were treating Vegeta, we noticed a significant increase in his basal power based on his energy readings. When he came to, he was able to conceal it, reducing it himself, but the blood samples corroborate what we thought. It confirms that he has indeed grown more powerful since you last saw him. From what we can tell, it's a part of Saiyan biology. If they survive a life-threatening situation, they grow much stronger as a result of it.
Kui looked at the scientist, puzzled.
Well, how strong is he now? What does the scouter say about his power level? It's difficult to say based solely on the blood sample, but it could be on par with Dodoria.
The doctor looked very nervous when he said that.
Don't tell Dodoria I said that.
That was not a good sign, thought Qui. This was already after Qui had accepted that Vegeta had survived. Okay, that was a bit of a downer, but still, Qui was more afraid of Frieza at this point, so he reluctantly boarded his ship and travelled to Namek anyway. If he couldn't take Vegeta out on his own, he could maybe entice the prince to go toe-to-toe with someone who could. Qui then decided when he got there to accompany Frieza on his mission to obtain the Dragon Balls, and actually do some grunt work, aiding Zarbon and Dodoria in their quest for the orbs. He determined that undertaking in some heavy lifting and grunt work with gusto would keep him in the Emperor's good graces. Sure, Frieza did go on to notice all of this, but he wasn't buying this good grace wholesale. What did this guy want? And so, he decided Frieza to confront Qui about it after obtaining the first Dragon Ball.
I admire your enthusiasm, Qui, but weren't your orders supposed to be looking for Vegeta solely?
Yes, my lord. It's just that my surveillance hasn't yet turned up any evidence on him, and I didn't simply want to sit around doing nothing when I could be more useful in serving you and your finding of the Dragon Balls.
You have a very convenient answer, Qui. If I didn't know any better, I'd assume that you were afraid of me. But in this case, you are right. You may stay and assist. But if Vegeta gets in the way of my plans, I'll have your head for letting him run riot. Besides, he's not a serious threat in any way. Just a frightful annoyance. But he's your problem, not mine. Are we on the same page, Qui?
Yes, without a doubt, my lord.
Qui then went on to witness an Earthling attack Dodoria and fleeing with one of the locals as they visited village after village. Frieza then directed Dodoria to pursue those two Earthlings. Dodoria hadn't returned, which greatly peeved the Emperor, who then instructed Zarbon to investigate Dodoria's disappearance. But Qui was a little bit unnerved by this, recalling something that the doctor had said to him about Dodoria's power level being the same as Vegeta's or something. Zarbon interrupted the alien from his train of thought.
Qui, you will accompany me in my efforts. If those humans have any tricks up their sleeves, we'll know what to do with them.
They then came across Vegeta while scouting around Namekian villages.
I see that someone has failed in their job.
He was being mocked Qui by Frieza's right-hand man.
Well, now that we have him, it's a good time to waste him.
Well, who are we dealing with here? Would you like to share Dodoria's fate?
Qui, though, played dumb.
Don't tell me you, of all people, murdered Dodoria!
Is that a lie you're attempting to sell us, Vegeta?
Zarbon was dubious about this revelation, but Qui was convinced that this wasn't a boast, that Vegeta had actually done it.
I'd be cautious if I were you, Zarbon. I have grown incredibly in strength.
This was now not the time to be hiding things, though, from Zarbon. He was on thin ice, Qui, so he did think about telling Zarbon the truth, but the green guy was having none of it, and decided to challenge the prince anyway. As he transformed into his beast form, it was a good time for Qui, because Zarbon beat the prince to a pulp and threw him into the lake as Frieza called him aboard the ship.
Qui, just stay here and keep watch. If he resurfaces, shoot him. I trust your power level is on par with his. You should be able to do it, won't you, boy?
When Zarbon left, Qui was about to do what he was told, blinded by command. But then he remembered again what the scientist had told him about the Saiyans after having briefly forgotten in the chaos of Zarbon beating him down. After suffering a potentially fatal injury, Saiyans became stronger. Sure, the mask of Zarbon's dominance put paid to that for a moment, but he also overheard a conversation between Frieza and Zarbon earlier, in which the latter told the former that he needed to question Vegeta about where he had hidden his Dragon Ball. Qui decided to show some initiative and plunged into the lake, grabbing the unconscious Saiyan, and was able to return to the Frieza ship with Vegeta still out cold, earning great praise from his boss.
You see, Zarbon, even Qui gets it. Never leave a Saiyan undisturbed. Make sure to keep an eye on Vegeta this time, Zarbon. Qui, your task here is complete. I'm in a good mood today, so how does this sound toward you? You may return to Frieza Planet 79. Chop chop. Maybe my father could put you to use.
Qui nodded, relieved that this was over and done with and that he had survived a now stronger Vegeta. But he wasn't ready to go just yet, even though working with King Cold was actually a pretty cushy job. He was feeling quite frisky. He wanted to see how all this would end, or even better, sneak in a cheeky wish on the Dragon Balls. After being dismissed from Frieza's sight, Qui turned off his scouter and went into hiding for a while, It was fortunate that he did not attract any attention, since he wasn't a high flyer, at least not yet. From the shadows, he saw the Ginyu Force arriving on planet Namek, attacking everyone, and at some point, the Saiyan then beating down all of them. Kui's mind at that moment finally began to understand what he was seeing. Cogs were beginning to turn. These Saiyans just kept losing in order to get stronger. Oh, cheeky, cheeky. He could even see Frieza changing form from afar. Should he really be here? This fear was well founded. It came to a point where one of those Saiyans then began to fight Frieza on equal terms. This was the worst outcome. Kui realized he was way out of his league at this point. He made the decision, the quick, smart decision, to pursue a running away strategy. From what he could tell, those Earthlings and Earth Saiyans had their own set of Dragon Balls, based on Vegeta's original Scouter transmissions had implied. However, they had then lost the ability to use them, those Earthlings, after losing their Namekian Elder for some strange reason, according to the information they received from Raditz's Scouters as well. But if they brought the Elder back, the Dragon Balls would be usable again on Earth. And in the unlikely event that those goodies succeeded, Kui could use those Dragon Balls to bring Frieza back to life and gain favor. Wait a minute.
Screw you, Frieza!
Kui had the potential to become immortal himself!
He could seize complete control of the Empire, yes! Kui, an emperor.
But if Frieza would survive, which was honestly more likely,
he could just say that he was guarding the planet just in case he would return.
Oh yes, that did sound nice. This felt like a plan that was bulletproof, no flaws whatsoever. Once he returned to Frieza's ship and his pod, Kui set a course for Earth and legged it. However, even with the insane speed of interstellar travel in Dragon Ball, Namek and Earth were quite a distance apart, so you can imagine Kui's surprise that when he arrived on Earth expecting no one to be there and him having a head start, he was immediately surrounded by the Dragon Team, led by Piccolo. Oh, so much for all that guff about sneaking around gathering Dragon Balls.
I hate to break it to you, but your boss is no longer alive, so hopefully you're not here to cause trouble, right?
How? How did they arrive here before him? The kid? The Namekian? Yeah, he recognized them from on Namek. Oh, he was also pretty certain that Namekian had actually gone toe-to-toe with Frieza in his second form. So his prospects, Kui, were looking bleak. Also, wait, Frieza was dead? So in the end, they were successful. Kui had to think of a plan fast.
No! You got it all wrong! I'm done with Frieza! I was only looking for asylum?
Asylum? Gohan repeated. He didn't seem convinced.
Yes! I deserted the Frieza Force, that's all. And now that you've defeated Frieza, I realized that this is the safest place to be in.
Still, the icy faces were looming over him.
Keep away from King Cold!
The Namekian replied.
Who's King Cold?
That's Frieza's father. He's just as strong as Frieza, if not more so. He may come here.
The Dragon Team then looked nervous.
I see. So maybe that's why Dad's not come home yet. He's going up against the king.
Gohan appeared to be actually feeling a little better after hearing all of this. This is why his dad hadn't come back. Kui continued.
Anyway, I'm tired of fighting. Totally. Obviously, I'd had enough of this whole killing thing too.
You're lucky that Vegeta's not around. He was talking about hunting down people like you.
Kui gulped.
Did Vegeta survive?
We don't completely trust him either. But he decided to go after the last of the Frieza Force, so, yeah.
Surely he isn't strong enough to take on the king himself, but your father was the one who defeated Frieza, right?
Kui turning to Gohan. Gohan giving a nod.
Yup, he's a true Super Saiyan.
So it was true, those legends, after all. The whole thing about the legendary Super Saiyan of legend! Kui went from having a brilliant plan to now no plan and him begging for his life. If the Namekian wanted to, he could have wrecked Kui in a second. And the kid was also quite strong. He couldn't see where the bald one was, but he could see others that he didn't recognize. This must be the rest of the squad. In the end, Kui was allowed to stay on Earth, on the proviso that he wouldn't do anything bad. That was vexing. He was unable to subjugate those primitives. The woman with the blue hair offered him living quarters though, and wanted to place Queen in the Namekians. But Kui then chose a more remote location to live. During his early days on Earth, he decided to learn more about their customs and culture, which was irritating, soft, and sentimental. But it did keep him safe from the wrath of Vegeta or King Cold. They also had a fairly strict monetary system too, which forced him to get a job. He could probably take over this planet on his own if he wanted to, if it weren't for their annoying defenders. It was also impossible to find the Dragon Balls too. Those blasted Earth Balls had some kind of cooldown, he found out. It would take like a whole year here before they could be used again. And according to hearsay, that Bumley girl kept using them for things. She always looked really healthy after using them too. But speaking of wishes, the Earthlings brought back the bald short one when they could. That was such a waste of time, Kui thought. No, he wasn't a fighter, he was a survivor. And if he had to survive here, he would overcome any obstacle, even if that obstacle was to be a desk job. So, it turns out that a desk job seems to be a popular place of work amongst Earthlings, so do that. Our alien friend has decided to start a life as a salaryman, as any use of brutal force on the locals would alert those pesky Dragon Team members and their Namekian friend. His attention was brought towards the likes of Lucky Foods, a company with an office branch promising to review even the most ridiculous application. As a refugee running from King Cole's retaliation after desertion, he could hope for help from Earth, Sanctuary even, as long as he wanted to maintain a good image. He was keeping his distance though from all of the Namekians. He didn't want to be recognized as someone who personally took part in the pacification of their villages, even though he was pretty sure that most of them were brought back to life and they may not remember him anyway. He was able to acquire a business suit, which was apparently necessary during a work interview.
What? You mean I can't just wear my armor? It's smart, we wear it all the time.
Okay. He had to admit that it was all easier in space. He didn't have a dress code. I mean, so long as you wore clothes. Except for that one guy, though. He got away with a little time. He didn't like talking about him. But yes, I mean, the job was a lot easier. They came for your planet, and if you were good enough, you were employed by them. If not, bye-bye. And although this option had its pros, less dying, Kui himself had to stop himself from blowing some of those unbearable locals and work colleagues up. He valued his own life, though, way too much to give in to his temptations, though.
So, why would you want to work for us?
Asked the interviewer.
Because you said accept all applications, I guess.
The man fixed his glasses, looking at the alien. Kui had to admit, though, even he could take down this individual with his eyes closed. He was still super stressed about the whole thing, though, like he was facing his biggest adversary.
What are your prior work experiences?
I was part of the Galactic Emperor Lord Frieza's invasion force. I mostly conquered planets for him. Did some odd jobs like, hunting dissidents, he answered.
I see.
I'm sorry?
Yes?
Asked the man.
It's just I thought you would be more surprised at my answer.
My good sir, we live in age 763. Lucky Foods is more than ready to keep up with the times, and we do want to be inclusive for potential extraterrestrial candidates. I mean, we wouldn't want to get cancelled now, would we? I mean, you coming around was just the perfect ticket for our social media presence.
Oh. All right.
What are your strengths?
Asked the interviewer.
I guess I can work under pressure. I can be a team player if motivated properly, and I'm pretty confident in my decisions.
I see. What about your weaknesses?
Kui didn't like this question. He rarely had any introspective thoughts.
If I have to say, I guess I tend to be a little too overconfident, and I tend to be brutally honest with people.
The interviewer nodded and then began to think for a moment.
All right, Mr. Kui. We'll call you back, and I'll show your applications to the higher-ups.
Wait, call me back? What does that mean?
But before Kui could get his answer, he was already on the other side of the door. His older self would have just blasted them away with a key attack for their dissidents. But he couldn't be his old self ever again. That could never be. How frustrating. He was considering returning to the Cold Force, just leaving the planet when they weren't looking and go back to Mama. After all, surely no one would have known that he'd deserted. He could always say that he was merely spying on the Earthlings to make sure that they were kept on their toes. Still, if the Super Saiyan was still at large out there, he could maybe overthrow the monarchy as well if it had been destroyed. But that sounded like effort, though. And between all of the conflict that he had endured, the insane power of the Namekians, the Saiyans, and even Vegeta now, who was able to outclass him so quickly, Kui suddenly felt very, very horribly insignificant. But he was still a survivalist. Oh yes. He and a couple of others were elevated by Frieza by being spared from the destruction of their homeworld. He had gotten lucky, and he intended to make the most of it. Although, had all of that been such a good thing? Really? Kui did enjoy his fair share of pillaging and destruction, of course, but it had just occurred to him that if he was just a tiny bit weaker than he actually was, he might have ended up with a less glamorous job. Or dead. Damn it, no wonder everyone got so soft on this planet. These thoughts were intruding him! They had way too much time to think. He suddenly realized that his kinsman, Gonma, and the others might have perished during the Namek invasion. How many were left now, he thought. He knew that his family had been elevated and highly regarded in the social status of the Empire, but what did it matter now? Frieza, who seemed indestructible, had been destroyed. And for Kui, that kind of broke his fighting spirit. No one was safe. And he hated to admit this, but this might be the reason why he had sought safety on Earth. As he began to eat some of their weird food, he was called on that primitive communication device that the Earthlings had given him. It was far less elegant than a scouter.
Yes? Mr. Kui, was it? We'd like to congratulate you, as your work application has been accepted. You will start tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. We will begin with some basic training, and you will be supervised by Mr. Delicatesen. Please don't be late.
Alright, that had been easier than it looked. What wasn't that easy though was that damn clock and time based on a 24-hour day. I mean, who invented that? Well, luckily, he had some sort of an alarm device that would surely wake him up on time. Right? Indeed, said device worked, and it was so loud and irritating that it could bring back his entire species from the dead. He also discovered that this weird dry square pastry tasted better cooked in the weird contraption that launched it into the air. That's a toaster, by the way. Also, that sweet fruit-like substance did wonders when put on the thing. That's jam, by the way. He put on his suit and decided to make a mad dash towards the offices of Lucky Foods. I mean, he would have done until he remembered that he could fly. Kui managed to get there on time, despite that, greatly impressing Del, his new boss. Del was a short, rotund man with large glasses and a very impressive-looking moustache. He seemed genuinely excited about having an alien on his team, ooh. But most of the training was pretty basic, including boring safety precautions and etiquette in the workplace, which was a little too stiff for Kui's liking. They were then in the office division of Lucky Foods, which meant that they did all the paperwork for the food company. Kui had to learn about Earth cuisine, which took an entire month to get his head around. But still, he did pick it up quite quickly in comparison to some of the other co-workers, and they brought him more food to try, and it actually wasn't half bad. Out of his entire team, Kui learned to accept 2 humans as his work colleagues that he kinda liked. One of them was a Stir, a man who seemed intimidated by his attitude, which quickly turned him into Kui's lackey. The other one was an adorable lady named Blanche. She was quite the opposite, not scared of him at all, which had awoken certain emotions in Kui that he hadn't been quite ready to process. Very quickly, the employees of Lucky Foods learned that their new co-worker was better utilized in company negotiations. As he went on more business trips with others, they quickly figured out that his menacing looks greatly aided the process of getting the company what it wanted. Quickly, Kui became a rather smooth-talking individual, and all that office knowledge and food lore started to genuinely interest him. He quickly realized that all that corporation hiffle was a perfect place for someone like him, who had built his entire life on backstabbing his rivals and upending their efforts, undermining them. In a way, all of this at Lucky Foods was quite similar and less risky, and he could still gain influence and power, and after just another couple of months, he quickly became Mr. Ikatesen's assistant. Del himself was promoted to a regional manager by the higher-ups, and he took Kui and his entourage with him. The alien used this time to get some free time with his new buddies as well. He enjoyed their company, actually. It was a little bit like with the Frieza Force, just less bloody. But they could have some fun after work at least, hitting some bars and watching Earth movies. Some of them were quite funny, actually. And although Blanche explained to Kui that laughing loudly when watching sci-fi horror in a cinema wasn't widely expected or accepted.
Oh, sorry, I thought this sci-fi horror was a comedy.
Kui shrugged. In a way, he had become quite comfortable on Earth, and unlike most of the Saiyans in our what-ifs, he didn't hate it. He wasn't a member of an innate warrior-like species, he just happened to be good, but this This was like stealing candy from a child, except it was socially acceptable. Getting better contracts from other companies, negotiating better cars for their delivery service. Thanks to Kui, Lucky Foods was growing in power at an incredible rate, and it ousted many of the smaller companies in their field. There was one instance when an angry blonde woman was trying to take down the office for apparently trying to bring her business down. But Kui managed to sweet talk her out of it. As he could empathize with her aggressive nature, he quickly suggested to his boss that they maybe buy out her company. Apparently, she was some sort of hotshot before she started the whole food transport business, a little bit of a maverick, which she could relate to, telling her stories about his mercenary life. They actually ended up in a mutual friendship.
And miss, if there is a bank you want to rob, count me in. I haven't had any fun in a while.
Yeah, sure thing, Bob. This residual cash you got me is almost too easy. I hope you ain't pulling my leg or trying to be holding out for the cops, or else I'm gonna kick your ass.
This made Kui's day, sort of. There were more situations like this to be had, as sometimes he had to go somewhere personally, as in the case of thieves trying to steal one of their delivery trucks. The alien had to politely show them that stealing from Lucky Foods was not the smartest idea to be had, and in less than a year, they became one of the most successful transport companies in the region, largely thanks to Kui's more direct approach. He was soon offered the position of manager, with his former boss being elevated even further to the rank of a board member. This allowed him to get himself a bigger house and an actual social status within West City. However, some things were meant to last, as one day, he was visited by an old acquaintance. He didn't know how he had managed to find his house and figured out that it was him with the clothes that he'd been wearing. The only thing Kui did know was that it wasn't the person that he wanted to see.
Vegeta! Nice shirt.
Oh, when Kakarot's brat told me that there was another spaceman on Earth and mentioned your name, I couldn't believe my ears. That's just precious. You and your little snack party. Tell me, Kui, give me one reason why I shouldn't blow your head off at the sight of you.
Because we're grown as people, and hey, technically I saved your life on Namek.
Oh, that's true, but that was extremely self-serving. Which is why we're even talking in the first place and why I haven't blown your head off at the sight of you.
Listen, Vegeta, I'm sorry for what has occurred. I can even get you a nice home here on Earth if you want. I'm actually reasonably wealthy right now. Let's make bygones be bygones, yeah?
Bygones be bygones, eh? Unfortunately for you, Kui, I don't function that way.
As Vegeta stepped toward him with a wicked grin, Kui stood in a defensive position.
Oh, you're making this way less fun than it should. Wait.
Vegeta's eyes widened.
Can you feel it?
Feel what?
The prince looked shocked.
Frieza! Frieza is alive and coming here! I can feel him. Him and his father.
Kui's purple paled into a cyanose-like tint.
Stop torturing me, Vegeta, and tell me what you want!
No, you idiot, I'm serious! Come, we need to talk to those fools. We have to contact Kakarot.
What?
As Vegeta dragged Kui by his expensive suit, he was forcefully taken to witness the landing of Frieza's ship. And what was equally terrifying is that indeed, the guy his former boss was alive with cybernetics and everything. Oh no, this was a mistake. Coming here was a mistake. Oh my god. And now Frieza was going to kill them all. Great. But then things quickly changed thanks to the intervention of a certain young man with a sword, who also turned out to be a Super Saiyan. In the meantime, Kui had managed to learn that Kakarot was the traditional Saiyan name for Son Goku, the man who had originally defeated Frieza, and the father of that nerdy kid who had aided him here on Earth. And yeah, the boy with the sword swiftly dealt with both Frieza and Cold. Phew, this time Kui could witness the whole thing with his own eyes. Yep, he felt even more insignificant, especially when Son Goku arrived on Earth, trying to warn them all about the invasion even though it had already happened. Then they had some sort of sparring thing, the two Super Saiyans. That was on a whole other level. And then they learned about the revelation related to the boy coming from the future and androids. Piccolo approached him, seeing how deeply confused he was.
So, are you gonna join us in training? I heard that you're decently strong, and despite my initial objections, you haven't caused too much trouble. I mean, you have, but corporations are our specialty. Now with Goku back, we'll probably be trying to prepare for those androids.
Where's Vegeta?
Kui defected the question.
Probably motivated to train even more to beat Goku. He's obsessed about it.
Well, I hope he's obsessed enough to forget about me. You know what? No, I'm fine. You've got this. You lot seem capable. It's too much of a power gap now anyway. I'm fine where I am. If you people need food delivered, though, I'm your guy. But fighting, I think I've done my fair share, so, excuse me.
And Kui left the dumbfounded Namekian. After all, he was a pragmatic being, and the only opponents he wanted to deal with right now were his competitors in the field. Between the Namekians, Frieza, the androids, and Super Saiyans, yeah, Kui said, I think I'll skip this one. This shipment was quite large, but Capsule Corp was a good customer. Kui had decided to personally oversee it, as he owed Bulma for all of these years. In retrospect, he didn't miss his Frieza Troop days all that much. He had adapted to the Earth's comforts and had mostly gone with the flow, so it came as quite a surprise to him when he arrived at the location to see if his delivery men had done their job correctly. They usually slacked quite a bit, and saw that in addition to Bulma, there was another familiar face there. It was Vegeta, who nearly gave Kui an absolute heart attack, or whatever counts as a heart attack for his species. He was dressed casually as well, which puzzled the alien, and he also didn't appear to want to blast him into pieces, at least not right away.
Over here, Kui! Bulma called out. Thank you for being such a sweetheart. This birthday party's gonna be massive! Some catering companies have even suggested that my expectations are too high. As if.
Kui regained his composure.
Not us, ma'am. Lucky Foods will take on any challenge. All I need is for you to sign here and we'll be on our way and get on with the work. These days I don't oversee deliveries, but this was a priority order and it was you, so why not?
Also, I believe you're acquainted with my husband, Vegeta.
Grumbled the prince.
A husband? Yes, Vegeta and myself, we go way back, way back. I completely missed the news that you'd gotten married in the interim.
Suddenly a squeaky and arrogant voice could be heard.
Wow, Mom, Dad, is it all for this birthday party? Can I get some cake?
This voice came from a short boy with the same hair color as Bulma, but Kui recognized something else that was familiar, his expression. It looked like the prince.
No way, young man, this is all for the party! Don't even dare try and touch anything, Trunks!
Vegeta sighed and tapped Kui on the shoulder.
Why don't we go for a walk like we used to? Get away from the woman.
The alien experienced a cold shiver down his spine, but what could he possibly do to say no? He simply nodded politely and slightly fearfully and walked with the Saiyan around Capsule Corp's grounds. After a while, Kui was the one to break the awkward silence.
So, a family man. Who would have guessed?
You have a problem with that?
Vegeta inquired calmly.
No, in fact, myself and Blanche were thinking about adopting. Not everyone is compatible with the Earthlings, you know.
Oh, Vegeta exclaimed, noticing the wedding ring on Kui's finger.
I suppose congratulations are in order.
3 years. I was a little bit crazy. We heard you, you know. When you yell at people to raise their arms to give you power or something. That was weird. I mean, we did it. I had my doubts, but we did it. When that bumbling idiot Mr. Satan told me to.
Vegeta grinned.
Yes, he does have his uses though.
But I knew for sure he wasn't the one to kill Cell. I'm pretty sure it was one of you.
Yeah, Kakarot's older brat.
Older? He had another one?
Yes, I know, there's 2 of them now. One is my son's best friend and the older one recently got married.
Whoa, really? The little guy? Where's the time gone?
You tell me.
They looked around the streets and saw people talking and children playing. The weather was pleasant.
Back in our prime days, we would have taken this place down in hours.
Speak for yourself. I'm still in my prime, stronger than ever, in fact.
Sorry, I forgot about you Saiyans and your obsession with power, but, you know, this place does have its advantages.
Vegeta was thoughtful for a moment.
Yes, it does. I hated it at first, but I've gotten used to it, so whatever.
Kui appeared nervous.
So, you still wish to kill me?
Vegeta turned around, perplexed.
Oh, that? No, I don't feel like it.
Really?
Vegeta averted his gaze again.
Yes. You haven't done anything questionable, so let's let bygones be bygones.
Wow. Guess we both changed, huh?
Of course we have.
Then he returned Kui's stare with a menacing grin.
But if you even consider going back to your old ways, I'll find out. And I'll gladly paint your food truck with your insides. Or better yet, I'll teach my son how to do it. Are we on the same page?
Crystal clear, Vegeta.
Good. It's been a pleasure to speak with you, Kui. Also, I hope you've ensured that this delivery meets your high standards. I'd hate to see my wife disappointed.
Yes, of course. Let me make sure to triple check.
And so Kui flew over to the truck to personally supervise the unloading of each individual food box. His employees had no idea why he had become so agitated all of a sudden. He looked quite chill up to now. But the food at the party was a big hit in the end. Some might even say it had attracted divine tastes. After that long day of work, Kui decided to take a fortnight off to take Blanche on a little trip around the world, so he could forget all about work-related stress. But true to his word, Vegeta never bothered him again. They even met up on occasion, socially. Vegeta's younger daughter Bulla later became friends with Kui and Blanche's adopted child, Etiola. She was a bright young lady who became interested in all things space because her father was from there. This made the purple alien both proud and worried. Still, it was preferable to whatever the Saiyans were up to. Allow them to deal with all of the crazy stuff. Kui even refused all corporate greed in order to spend more time with his family, and he later retired to open up a restaurant. He just liked owning it. Not cooking or anything, but just overseeing the place made him happy. Outside of the Frieza Force, life was good, and he never looked back. Never, ever. But let's place the story after the Frieza saga, or heck, even after the future Trunks saga, when he's already visited our heroes. At this point, Oolong isn't really doing much in the story. He's kind of just there in the background. His residence also shifts from time to time, as he tends to stop off at Capture Corporation or Kame House for temporary residence. But after all the adventures with aliens, Oolong decided to visit his home of Octagon Village and catch up with Jasmine and Unan, with whom he has since mended their relationship, because remember in the original Dragon Ball, his place there wasn't great. So while they were eating at a diner located in his hometown, he was telling his old buddies what's what.
So yeah, Goku's an alien, and there was a whole race of Gokus. Crazy, huh?
Unan yawned at this news.
I hardly remember the guy. It's mostly because he had a pretty hot wife.
Pigman was explaining in the most shallow way possible.
I mean, you're not wrong, but you should remember Goku. He kind of saved our port many times from other aliens. King Piccolo, also an alien. Those 3 guys who invaded a few years ago, also aliens. From Goku's race. They all turned into giant big apes.
You know, when you kidnapped the kindergarten teacher, everyone was saying that you were an alien. Oolong felt annoyed by that assumption.
Hey, that was a long time ago. I'm sure Miss Jimfo's already forgotten about that.
Jasmine leaned forward a bit. She screams every time someone mentions your name.
Also, what a stupid idea. Me? An alien? I'm just like you two, pork chops.
Well, I mean, Unan looked at Jasmine. You do have those weird shape-shifting powers.
Come on, you know the story. I'll learn them at a shape-shifting academy.
And your nana found you as a baby.
Wait, what?
Oolong blinked twice.
Yeah, everyone knows that.
Didn't she tell you, Oolong?
Oolong was getting angrier and angrier.
What are you insinuating? That's silly. No, you're trying to mess with me. Cut it out.
Well, you can ask her when the last time it was you spoke to Grandma Chidao.
Oolong pondered for a while this thought.
It's been some time.
Damn it, Oolong. The poor old lady's raised you, and you're ghosting her. You should go and see her. She's old.
Jasmine then also berated her old pal for being inconsiderate. It seemed like he had a soft spot for the elderly.
Oh, we haven't exactly parted ways on friendly terms. She wasn't too happy with me being expelled.
Unan blinked twice.
Wait, you're telling me that you haven't spoken to Nana since?
Oolong averted his gaze.
All right, you guys won. I'm gonna go and see her. But only to prove to you that I'm not some sort of foundling.
Pretty anxious, Oolong walked to a small hut on the outskirts of Octagon Village. He felt like his stomach was trying to crawl out through his mouth.
You got this, Oolong. You got this.
After a moment of hesitation, he knocked on the door. He could hear some slow, shuffling footsteps. Someone approaching the door from the other side. After a few seconds, he heard an old voice.
I don't need anything you sell. Go away, little rascal!
The voice was pretty hoarse and judgmental, just as he remembered it.
No, Grandma Chidao, it's me, Oolong.
There was a pause that seemingly lasted an eternity, and then the door opened. He saw a short, hunched-over old pig lady with cat-eye glasses over her eyes and very grey hair tied together into a tight bun. She had a dark green shawl over her shoulders, and she was looking at him with the expression of a huge shock on her face.
Grandma?
As she approached him, he expected a hug, but...
You rascal! Dare you to come here after all these years? You know how worried I was? Look at you! You look no good! What has become of you, boy?
She started to hit him with the shawl rolled up.
Oh, Grandma, I'm sorry. I mean, I was around. I wanted to visit. I just wanted to visit.
The hug came later though, when Chidao calmed down a bit and was able to release all her pent-up frustration. There was a lot of it.
Well, I guess that I'm happy that you're still alive, you no good piece of bacon. Truth be told, I thought you'd gone years ago. Come in. Leave the shoes in the front. You remember the rules.
As she walked him into her house, it was just like he remembered. It hadn't changed one bit. The smell of tea and the various mushrooms filled the tiny rooms. She even kept his photo on the wardrobe. This made Oolong feel very guilty.
Well, a lot of weird stuff's been happening around here. Demons, aliens, what's next? Freaky killer robots or something?
Funny you should mention that, Gran.
Oolong puffed out his chest proudly.
I was kind of in the middle of all that.
Were you? What are you up to these days? You certainly don't look like you're starving, though. You've grown a little chubby.
Me? Chubby? Well, you know that I'm a vital part of the Dragon Team Warriors?
Dragon Team what?
Alright, okay, let me start from the beginning.
And Oolong then started to tell her the entire story of the Dragon Team thus far, from his own perspective. And can you imagine there's going to be a little bit of embellishment here? He was so excited that he also forgot to emphasize his importance in all of those events. So around the Frieza saga, Grandma Chidao simply asked,
Alright, but what's your role in all of this, really? Other than being a total perv and asking for underwear.
Hey, it was a strategic choice, alright? I stopped an evil emperor from taking over the world by doing that.
Chidao sighed.
Oh, Oolong, darling. We knew Emperor Pilaf here. He couldn't take over a plate of soup. Not to mention the entire world. Yes, it sounds like you have very interesting friends. If I hadn't been keeping up with the news about the Saiyans, I wouldn't have believed you. The things you've been telling me are far too stupid to have been made up. Why haven't you volunteered to help your friends on that Nunic thing?
Damn it, Grandma. Well, there are other people more suited to the task than...
I thought so. Cowardly. Lazy. You haven't changed at all, have you?
Oolong scowled.
It's almost as if you were glad that I'd gone.
Chidao paused for a moment though.
Oh, don't be such a drama pig. I did miss you, you insufferable delinquent. I just want you to become something more than a con man.
Well, I had a pretty big mansion.
Where is it now?
Well, let's switch the subject, Nana. I met up with Jasmine and Unan, and,
Those two again! Those two are always a bad influence toward ya.
well, they told me that apparently all of Octagon Village knows that I was the foundling. Preposterous, ain't it?
Chidao's expression changed as if she'd been hit by thunder.
Nana? Are you there?
Well, you see...
The old lady suddenly started to look as if she'd been caught stealing cookies from the cookie jar.
Wait, but you told me my parents had died in a truffle-seeking expedition. Well, it was kind of weird that there were no photos of the incident, but still. Have you been lying to me, Nana?
Chidao took a deep breath and sighed again.
Listen, the important thing is I raised you as if you were one of my own.
So it's true. You did find me. You really did find me.
Oolong couldn't believe his rather large ears. He was starting to sound a bit like Goku.
Yes, on a pretty weird night 24 years ago, I was working in my garden. The stars were particularly bright that night, and I heard a weird noise, and there you were, butt naked, loud in a basket, bawling your ears out.
Wait, what?
You left quite a ruckus, I can tell you. Seemed like you'd fallen from somewhere.
From the sky? Am I really an alien?
Oolong was shocked.
I don't think so, but you had something with you.
Oh man, so he really did come from a weird place. On one hand, Oolong was absolutely shocked by the revelation. Maybe he had some cool, amazing powers that he didn't realize he had, like Goku! With powers such as this, he could maybe have wealth, power, and, beautiful ladies. Maybe he could then find out how to unlock said powers.
Oh, what was it? Did you keep it?
Chidao rolled her eyes.
Yes, but, do you really want to see it?
Do I? Of course I do!
Alright, oh, don't say I didn't warn you.
Chidao opened up one of the drawers and took out a small hand rake with 9 teeth. It kind of looked old-timey, but it was so small. Oolong examined it closer.
That's it? A rake?
I told you it wasn't much. Got your hopes up. Your parents were probably some sort of gardeners or farmers or something and forgot to take it out of their basket. Not every foundling's an alien. I'm sorry, Oolong. I should have told you earlier.
Maybe then you would have turned out okay. Hey, all was lost, Oolong thought. Maybe this was some sort of magical rake, you know? Goku had that whole power pole dealie. You know, he used that and that worked out kind of cool. It looked like a regular old stick most of the time, but it was actually pretty useful. Oolong gave the rake a few pathetic swipes, but nothing happened. Jidao seemed unconvinced by that, so the younger pig changed the subject. He did, however, keep the rake. He didn't throw it away. I mean, Grandma had little to no use for those rakes anyway, so why not take it? Her own garden rakes were much better as well. After drinking tea with her, he bid her farewell, though he had been blackmailed into promising that he would visit her again a lot sooner this time. Still though, the rake became an obsession for Oolong over the next few days. He asked Dr. Brief for help about it, and sure enough, it was just an old piece of garden equipment. Hey, maybe it's a little bit valuable? At some point, he asked Goku for help, so they decided to go to Korin and Yajirobe about it. Although he noted the craftsmanship of the power pole, though he couldn't remember any relics that looked like a rake. One of the biggest discoveries about the object, though, was shown when Goku decided to examine it. And with the right move, like a telescopic club, it expanded greatly.
Oh, so it is magical! Gimme!
Alright there, Oolong, but I gotta warn ya.
Yeah, Goku had his power pole before, I know the drill.
Oolong jumped, trying to take the rake from Goku, and then fell to the ground under the weight of the object.
Oh, that's a lot heavier than I thought.
In fact, it was so heavy in this state that Oolong became trapped beneath it. Goku snatched it again and transformed it into a more portable version. There was one more person they maybe could ask for more information. Kami. As the old Namekian examined the rake, he nodded slowly.
You're right, but it's not simply of a magical nature. It's divine.
What? Divine?
Oolong seemed shocked.
As if it came from the gods?
That's what I mean by that, yes. Although I am not sure of the one who made it. Maybe King Kai will have some answers.
Oh man, this is starting to look like trying to get your case out of the office. They always send you to the higher department. Goku, could you take me to King Kai?
Can do.
And before Oolong realized it, he was instantaneously popped to a small planet where King Kai resided. As Oolong sheepishly handled the rake to the Kai, he examined it and started to laugh really, really loudly.
So that's why they sent you. Oh, that's precious.
So you know about this thing, King Kai?
Goku seemed intrigued.
Oh, yeah, but right now, I'm talking to the pig, Goku, so, butt out with ya.
As he finished the sentence, Oolong felt that all of the gazes of Goku, King Kai, Gregory, and Bubbles were locked squarely on him, and he had no idea why. Oh boy.
Huh? What do you mean, King Kai?
Oolong then suddenly became rather anxious. The divine being gave him a good look, adjusting his spectacles.
Yep, I'm pretty sure that's you.
How do you know Oolong? He hasn't died before. Have you?
Died?
The pig man examined his body, suddenly scared.
Well, I used to know you at some point, but I do recognize your energy. You really let yourself go, bud. There's so little left. But I was raised by Grandma at Octagon Village. I've known Goku for years and I've never met you before. What gives? Oh, yeah, I did know you, but in your previous life. Previous life?
King Kai chuckled.
So, you know Korin and Mr. Popo, right? I mean, yeah? So they were born in the other world and sent to Earth to help our guardian, the one you know as Kami.
Goku was surprised to hear that backstory.
Huh. I always wondered where they came from. I was always afraid to ask, you know.
Wait, but did come to the other world, right? Well, how can you be born there?
Oolong was starting to get very confused with the whole thing.
Well, listen, it's just how it is. Some of the divine beings work like that, you know, and you were one of them. I'm a god? Lesser spirit, let's say. Not much is left of it now, but you were, quite high in the ranks of divine helpers, actually. Pretty high. Pretty high.
Both Goku and King Kai could see Zenny symbols in Oolong's eyes.
So I was important? Pretty rich too, right? Well, you were, but no. You were punished and sent to the mortal world. To Earth, it seems. Well, that's where you ended up. And, I must admit, I do enjoy the irony of you being raised by pig people and being reincarnated as one. That's a little hammy. Wait, punished? What did I do?
They both could see that King Kai was hesitating to respond to that for quite a while. Then he started to mumble something in Goku's ear.
Oh man, really?
The Saiyan looked at Oolong, disappointed.
No way, Oolong. How could you?
How could I what? I didn't even know what I did.
The pigman started to look very irritated. Not wanting to elaborate any further, King Kai loudly cleared his throat.
Listen, your name was, Zen Bajin. You were a pretty powerful warrior, and were known as a very famous adventurer to boot, here in the other world. You also were able to take shortcuts through the Snake Way, thanks to your sailing abilities.
Sailing? Well, that doesn't make any sense. I hate water.
Well, different kinds of sailing that don't involve water.
So what you're saying is that there's this Zen Bajin fellow dreaming inside of me, and I can maybe awaken his hidden power to become awesome?
King Kai rolled his eyes under his shades.
Well, I mean, considering that you're really not in the shape to be handling godly powers, and very little of that essence is left, and the fact that you're really, really lazy, gluttonous, and, I mean, I gotta be honest, kind of creepy with the ladies. Yeah, not much of Bajin's original spirit's really in your bucket, kid.
Goku looked at King Kai.
But couldn't you maybe help him train King Kai? Recover some of that spirit? Make him more useful to that power? I mean, I know that he's done some terrible things, and the stuff that you told me is even worse, but gosh dang it, he's still my friend, and I want to help.
What did I actually do, Goku? Please tell me.
Sorry, Goku. I don't train beginners, as you should know. It would kill the poor bacon boy. Why didn't you do it?
I mean, we would, but we're training for the androids, and I don't think I'm good with training with gods.
You literally trained with Kami and me. We're technically both gods. You did alright.
Yeah, but teaching someone else is different. Well, I don't know, what if he washes your car or something as payment?
King Kai said nothing for a moment, thinking.
Once the upholstery is well and you got a deal. Come on, Porkchop.
Well, my name is...
Listen, I will try to train you because I could use the help with the car, and I actually find the idea rather amusing. So until I say otherwise, you're known as Porkchop.
And so Oolong's long and, quite frankly, exhausting training regime began. On some occasions, he even tried to use his shape-shifting abilities to hide from King Kai. Either Bubbles or Gregory, very attuned to the art of shape-shifting, were always able to find him lickety-split. He started off with very mundane work, making him feel that the old man had simply just made him a servant rather than a potential trainee. It's not the first time that's actually happened in the history of King Kai. Maybe Oolong ended up just being the latest of his lackeys. And it really didn't help that Oolong wasn't particularly brave, patient, hardworking, or selfless.
All right, Narrator. Jeez, they get it.
Anyway, after Goku's first visit, Oolong could use his 9-tooth rake. I mean, he wasn't falling over with the weight of the item, but it didn't feel like he was particularly skilled at it. He basically learnt enough to be just able to hold it. King Kai was quite harsh with him to boot, which caused his overall stamina to increase without him knowing it, but he was still miles away from becoming an actual fighter, or even a shadow of his former self, Zen Bajin. At some point, Goku realized that Oolong wasn't enjoying his time that much and negotiated a short break for the pigman to boost his morale. Maybe he could go camping with him, Gohan, and Krillin, just to get back to Earth and reacquaint himself with his now homeworld, an activity he actually enjoyed in the past, Oolong, going camping. And sure enough, they initially had some fun, with Oolong slowly setting his mind towards dropping the whole training thing now that he was back on Earth. Now he had some distance away from the Kai, he realized that all of this really wasn't for him. That was the sort of stuff that Goku liked, and him, no. He was right. He was lazy. He liked to eat. And maybe he should work on perhaps, the third thing a little more. But he was happy how he was. Who cared about this whole Z-Bougie thing or whatever his reincarnation was called? He, right now, was Oolong, the greatest shape-shifting con-man, pig-man there ever was. But as he should know, a picnic with Goku and friends couldn't just simply be a picnic. They had to be attacked by spacemen, didn't they? What was even worse is that the leader of those spacemen, who also kinda looked like Frieza but wasn't, was able to really get close to taking down Goku. Apparently he was called, Cooler or something, and was the brother of the evil Emperor Frieza. Oh no. Oolong, Krillin, and Gohan's dragon Icarus, or Higher Dragon, went to search for the two of them, as the situation started to look dire.
Oh, why can't we have a peaceful picnic for once?
Oolong was irritated. In that moment, actually, he rather actually would have wanted to be on King Kai's planet. At least that didn't explode. Well, here's hoping for the future, buddy. And I don't think either of us are strong enough to deal with that. I hope Goku and Gohan are okay, says Krillin. As they found them in a collapsed cave, the two of them were able to dig them up pretty quickly, thanks to Oolong's training. A little bit of a surprise, but they still needed to get some sensu beans for Goku, otherwise they wouldn't be going anywhere. It was decided that the Pigman would be the one looking after the Saiyan to help himself pass the time when Krillin and Gohan were out going getting some sensu. He ended up spending some time talking to his friend, the one who actually scored him that deal with King Kai.
Hey, I do appreciate you helping me with King Kai and stuff, but I don't think I want to go back, you know. I don't think fighting is really my thing. Well, let's be honest, whoever this Bajin was, I'm not him, you know. I'm not brave like you, buddy.
Goku faded in and out of consciousness.
Well, I think you're pretty brave, buddy. You saved us with your clever tricks many times in the past.
Well, I did it more for self-preservation, but...
Hey, what's that noise?
Goku interrupted. One of Cooler's space henchmen had found them, but Krillin and Gohan needed more time. They weren't back yet. Oolong wanted to escape, but he couldn't just leave Goku like this. He swallowed loudly and morphed into Goku, grabbing his rake.
Oh, look who showed up! The monkey was planning some gardening, huh? Well, somehow you look even more pathetic.
I am Son Goku, the legendary Super Saiyan. Beware or I'll show you my Super Saiyan form,
the Goku-long said.
Oh yeah? Well, Monsieur Cooler will be here soon, and he shall wreck you. But I can throw a few punches in the meantime,
the very, again, lyrical henchman said, charging towards Goku-long. Oolong used the rakes to block the attack, and although the item wasn't broken into pieces, it was the only thing between him and certain oblivion. Irritated, the henchman kicked his legs, causing Oolong to trip over. A bit hurt, Oolong then turned back into a pig.
What? Qu'est-ce que c'est? A mere swine? You've been trying to trick me, haven't you? But what is this? Oh, my scouter is detecting another life in signal inside the cave. Who are you holding in there, pork chop?
My name is Oolong!
Oolong picked up the rake and ran to the henchman, who effortlessly blocked his attack.
Well, soon you will be my dinner.
Charging a powerful ki attack, the henchman was about to shoot at Oolong, but the attack did nothing. Oolong, in that moment, had transformed into a larger, boar-like creature with a golden mane, 2 fangs protruding from his mouth, and a primal, fierce look in his eyes. The massive hit from the rake had cut the henchman's face, damaged his scouter, and broke a few teeth in the process.
Did I do that?
Oolong thought to himself, without speaking. Meanwhile, Gohan returned to the cave, also shocked by Oolong's new form. This guy was relentless, this bigger pigman, and soon the henchman became his prey, especially since the damage that the rake did was quite brutal. The henchman tried to fly away, but Oolong had instinctually inhaled a lot of air and then shot a powerful wave of wind at the assailant, causing the henchman to hit a tree and then a nearby rock.
Impressive, pigman. You have beaten my right-hand fellow. I do wonder, are you soft on the inside?
Cooler said menacingly. As Cooler attacked, Oolong tried to block with the rake, but he was simply too quick, this guy. Cooler knocked him out of his transformation, and Oolong was unable to transform back. Goku caught Cooler's hand and the two started to fight, with Cooler even transforming into another form, an even scarier one, even scarier than Oolong's one. At the end of the day, Goku was able to deflect Cooler's energy attack, which was destined to blow up the planet, sending the attacker into deep space, riding a hot ball of energy, and then collapsing and colliding into another big ball of energy. That's the sun, by the way.
Oolong! Oolong? That was amazing! You were able to transform yourself!
Gohan exclaimed.
Yeah, but I'm not sure how, Oolong replied. I mean, that was pretty awesome, right? Did you see how I beat up that guy?
As they talked, they heard a beam of energy and somebody falling to the ground. It seemed that henchman Salza was trying to sneak up on them, but Piccolo had arrived at the scene and saw him first.
Hey you, awesome. Mind your back.
The rest of the picnic went by spectacularly. Oolong was very proud of himself. He even then visited Octagon Village to tell his Grandma Shadao all about it.
You know, you don't need to make things up to make yourself look better, boy. I know you through and through. But what I said was all true. I was able to change and everything. Yeah. Yes, I know you're a shapeshifter and all that, rascal. Don't try and pull the wool over my eyes. Oh, it was different this time. Anyway, I'm glad that you visited me again much sooner than before. Hopefully, this is going to be a new habit of yours.
Well, it was time to change a lot of habits, actually. If Oolong wanted to experience this power ever again, he would have to be less lazy, less cowardly, and work harder. As Goku took him back to King Kai to give him another chance, several things about him did change. Whilst he was still somewhat lazy and avoided training from time to time, when there was an actual time for some fighting to be involved, Oolong would give it his all. Still though, the transformation never reappeared, but Oolong wasn't disheartened by that. If he did it once, he would be able to do it again. One day. Maybe that's how the legendary Super Swine, as he dubbed himself, worked. Maybe it appeared when it was needed the most. As the android conflict was approaching, Oolong was getting ready. For once, he wanted to join the fray, not as a bystander, but as a proper Z-fighter. But maybe not putting in 100% of the effort, more like 69% of the effort. Oolong was training alongside everyone else for the androids, but he didn't make nearly as much progress as he had hoped for. So, yeah, good luck to the Super Swine. I suppose Zenbajin will just awaken up in a time of great need then. But wait, surely the android attack would be one of those times of great need! It was a little aggravating though. Wasn't that the whole point of all the effort and preparation? To ensure that Zenbajin's soul would waken up and then Oolong could access the power better, gain muscles and be able to kick some butt? Oolong felt really conflicted about this. He wasn't much help during the initial attack from Dr. Gero and that clown thing, as he wasn't much stronger than Yamcha or Ten Shinhan at this point. He was confident that if he could transform, he'd be able to be of actual assistance, maybe to the likes of Piccolo or even Gohan. But now his job was to assist Chi-Chi in caring for Goku, who had suffered greatly as a result of the heart virus. He was prepared to defend his friend, even if he was outmatched if the androids appeared. He'd done this before, so he'd helped Goku out before, so he'd do it again. Maybe that's what triggered the change. Protecting Goku. Fortunately though, there was no need to worry about those guys. A new threat, no, multiple threats appeared. Then there were the 3 new androids, and then this other guy, who was an amalgamation apparently of almost everyone besides him. Was pretty sure the Bugman didn't have any of his precious bacon DNA within him. And naturally, all of this was a bit of an emotional roller coaster. He considered going into the time chamber with Krillin, but the humans were so exhausted by the conflict that they resorted to more traditional methods of training, and Oolong tagged along. Then it all came down to Goku's sacrifice and Gohan's victory. That was heartbreaking in a way. Few things could do that sort of emotional damage to the pigman, but when his friend decided to stay in the other world, it made him extremely sad. What was even more tragic was that despite having that latent power within him, he was only able to ever summon it once. After all these years, only that one time. Perhaps he should maybe reconsider his strategy. Perhaps going straight to King Kai was a better option, so he asked Master Roshi for some assistance. He was able to grasp the Kamehameha despite being more of a brawler and a shapeshifter rather than a key attacker. Well, hey, better late than never, I suppose. Then he went to Korin, despite the cat's disapproval, because Oolong had outgrown his lessons long ago. Piccolo, who was now technically part Kami, was the next one to teach him how to fly after a few lessons. Yes, even now he didn't know how to fly. For his next attempt, he asked his friends to assist him in gathering the Dragon Balls so that he could get maybe a free pass to run the Snake Way properly. Yamcha was pleasantly surprised that his friend, known for his laziness, wasn't simply just taking a shortcut and wishing for his power to be unlocked there and then. Even though it had occurred to Oolong, he decided that it would contradict every single point that Goku and King Kai had taught him. Even he wasn't that lazy. So while he was still alive, Oolong decided to run the Snake Way on his own. He also did it with a hefty backpack of supplies that he could eat along the way, and some breaks, but he was able to actually do it. Only to discover that King Kai's planet had been destroyed alongside Goku. That was not a good feeling. Nevertheless, because of the Saiyans' intervention with King Yama, he was permitted to see both of them in the other world, just somewhere else.
Wow, Oolong. Did you really do all of that?
I mean, yeah. I don't think beating Frieza's on the table just yet, though. I don't want to end up in hell. I don't feel like I've made much progress. Certainly. I feel like there's been some benefit, but...
For a brief moment, King Kai pondered.
Perhaps you're just trying too hard, Porkchop. What do you mean? Wasn't this punishment supposed to teach me the value of hard work or something?
The Kai shook his head.
I mean, if you want some kind of gratification, you are stronger than the first time I met you, at least. You were able to run the snake route that you couldn't do before. Simply, right now, you are better. You're just not at the top of the food chain, is all.
The Cricket Man sighed as Oolong sighed.
If only I'd been a little bit stronger. Perhaps things would have turned out differently. I mean, I know I'm not the bravest or the most truthful of people, but come on. Am I really that bad?
King Kai repositioned his spectacles.
Listen, kiddo. I don't claim to know what your punishment is exactly, but I can see that you're taking this way too seriously. I think I preferred your kinda working but kinda slacking off attitude. Maybe just enjoy what you have and focus on becoming better eventually. Yeah, for the sake of becoming better than rather becoming the Super Boar.
I mean, I never asked for the Super Saiyan thing, said Goku. It just came to me when I needed it. Of course I've trained, but, you know, that was never the goal. I think it was for Vegeta, but not for me.
Oolong nodded. It wasn't the answer he had been looking for, but it was something to think about. He did continue his training over the next few years. He even decided to compete in the 25th World Martial Arts Tournament, the same one that Goku would attend as well. That could be fun. Perhaps Oolong was now on par with Krillin. Although it's worth noting that Oolong hadn't forgotten his roots as a shapeshifter, and he occasionally morphed into Zen Barjin just to feel stronger for a moment, it wasn't the true power. He tried to ask the Supreme Kai guy maybe about all of this, but he got snubbed at every turn. Unfortunately, the tournament was cut short due to Barbody's intrusion, so after everyone went after Wizard Barbody, Oolong came along as well, only to see Krillin and Piccolo turned into stone by Deborah.
Oh look, what is this? A little piggy that appears to be lost? Mocked
Demon King Deborah.
Oh, that's cute. You think you can scare me?
Oolong defended himself with his rake. The demon's eyes flashed with recognition.
Well, I'll be damned. Who am I kidding? I'm already damned. Bargain. So this is where you've ended up. In a little piggy's body.
The evildoer mockingly laughed.
You know who I am? Oh, you killed a lot of my minions back in the day. How could I forget? Oh, the mighty have fallen. Oh, I'm looking forward to flaying you in your current weak state.
And as the demon spat on Oolong, he quickly realized that he was immune. Something was awakening inside the pigman. This time, he wasn't making it up. This time it felt different to Oolong, as if he were born to fight demons. The fight wasn't easy, as Deborah was a terrifying opponent, but all of Oolong's training had compounded now, when he became Barjin for real. Everyone gathered to witness this magnificent duel between the demon and the divine swine. And in the end, Zen Barjin was able to use his rake to pierce the M on Deborah's forehead, turning Piccolo and Krillin back to normal. Unfortunately, his powers then faded again, and he returned to his normal self. Being a regular old Oolong didn't help much against Majin Buu in the long run, but Goku and Vegeta eventually saved the day. Oolong then realized something, that he might one day discover the secrets of his power, but he chose not to dwell on it on the here and now. He realized that nothing could be rushed, and while he was still training after the Buu conflict, it wasn't to awaken the legendary Super Swine or anything, but simply for his own benefit. He became more respectful of others, more optimistic, and soft-hearted as a result of his training, and only used his rake as a last resort. And in a strange way, he didn't need Zen Barjin anymore. Perhaps this is what made him the true legendary Super Swine. Yes, this guy is very popular, as demonstrated with our full story of him meeting his son for the first time, garnering a huge amount of attention in recent weeks. But this time out, we're going with the more silly notion of this guy becoming the Super Saiyan God. Back when Beerus thought he was going to be getting a premonition of it going down in 39 years, but yeah, that ain't happening. The Oracle Fish could be wrong here. So let's set the scene and make yourself comfortable, folks. let's get started. So, in terms of the initial premise, we're going with a narrative means that we've deployed in various other what-if scenarios concerning the original path of Dragon Ball with Bardock in it. We're going to be doing a best of both worlds here, meshing the minus and Z interpretations of the story before Planet Vegeta exploded together. So that means we got Gine, and yet we got the idea of Bardock seeing the future, and being more of a badass than he was in the minus version of the story. In this timeline, he had told his squad more about what he had experienced, and this time around, they actually believed him, and were more willing to help, or at least have his back should any of their other comrades get shirty about it. One day, Bardock was trying to get some shut-eye at his home, already having buzzed Raditz away from having to play with him, and told him instead to go and play with some bugs or something. He didn't really care. Little did he know, though, that that would change Raditz's life forever. He would form an everlasting affinity with the Beetles. Would Raditz be the ultimate big bad Beetleborg? But for now, Bardock wasn't really going to be getting much rest. He was having another vision. He couldn't control them. And this was one of the strongest he had seen since he had been gifted this power. Here, he could see Frieza, and him looking increasingly nervous and agitated, apprehensive about something that wasn't quite clear to the Saiyan right now. This was really odd. Frieza wasn't one to be scared of, well, just about anything. Why should he be scared about something? Then the vision flashed to himself and his squad, as well as Gine and Raditz. Then 6 of them holding hands in a circle, channeling something around them, like they were sharing some kind of information or spirit thing. I don't know. I mean, oh, great. Normally when these visions were starting to get juicy or interesting or actually clear and coherent, they would stop, fade away, and he would wake up. Bardock tried his best to piece together what that divination meant. He had been getting slightly better at deciphering these ideas and what they could possibly mean, and this time his mind was thinking that maybe he reckoned that Frieza was scared with something that they were doing, channeling energy into, oh, maybe a single attack? Could 6 Saiyans really have that much power to stop the Emperor? If so, why hadn't they done that before? Why would the opportunity arise in the first place? Well, funny you should mention that. After he had had that moment of clairvoyance, Bardock started to hear a voice poking at him from all directions, like it was some kind of multiple stereo system. He started to shout at people randomly who were physically not there, perturbing those who were there, brandishing that Bardock guy as somebody who was going mad with the pressure of working for Frieza. Many of the elites thought that he was
struggling to cope with the rise to mid-class status,
deeming him
not capable of working anymore,
and maybe considering means to demote him back to a low-class runt for his own good. This voice was trying to communicate with him. This was real. It definitely was something present.
Bardock, band together. Stop the evil. Heed the visions. Do not fight them.
Bardock kept trying to ignore this voice, whatever it was, but its echo and royal tone were sort of persuasive, enough to make him not entirely ignore it. Not to mention, that vision was so tempting to try out. It was so simple. So he would. If it did not work, then maybe it would have been a little bit awkward for a couple of hours, but whatever. And Bardock would have a reason to no longer trust those snippets of the future. Damn those Canassans. So during the Bardock squad's downtime, he called his troops to his house, as well as asking Raditz and Gine to be present too. Toma spoke for all of them. What's going on, Bardock? Why are we all here when we should be getting ready for our next mission? Meet's a big payout, you know. Dodoria seemed very keen on us being prepared. Bardock waved that aside. That badass can wait. For now, I need you all to humor me, okay? I saw something. Something which could give us the power to stop Frieza for good, and give us the freedom that we crave. Pumpkin was intrigued.
Really? Does it involve us killing people other than Frieza?
No, pal. All you gotta do... Bardock gulped at the weirdness of what he was about to say. Hold hands and give me your energy. Sure enough, those present looked at him with a gaze that simply read, "Are you for real?" I mean, sure, they all trusted his ability to see the future and predict stuff that had become clear. After all, most of them had seen what went down on Kanassa and what those fish people could actually do. You know, before they were made extinct, of course. But this seemed very weird and awkward Regardless, just do this for me, okay? I won't ask again, he said in a more irritated manner. If it does nothing, then you can ignore any more predictions that come out of my mouth. It ain't that hard anyway, just do it. The group looked at each other.
We'll do it, Bardock,
said Gine with Raditz in tow. They were for sure willing to help him. Thank you, said Bardock with genuine appreciation. There, only 3 of you gotta do it. Toma stepped forward, as did Seripa. Only one was holding out. Come on, we need one more, okay? Both Totepo and Pambukin were reluctant to do it, but Toma nodded. Just do it, one of you. Get over yourselves. In the end, it was Pambukin grudgingly trudging forward and getting into position.
Oh, let's get this over with.
And so 6 Saiyans held hands in a circle, and Bardock was trying to remember what else he had to do. What happened next? He asked the group to channel their energy into him. Note, by the way, I am aware that it's meant to be pure-hearted Saiyans doing this, but for the sake of the story and this being April Fool's, we're going to tweak the rules a little bit, just for the sake of the story. After all, these guys aren't the worst Saiyans out there. After a few seconds of standing around and nothing happening, a flicker of ki was starting to circle around the group. They all could feel their life essence dancing around the formation and beginning to draw itself toward one particular person. Bardock. He could feel their energy enter him and a figurative lock being prized open. An ancient power was being awoken within him. But it wasn't that supposed legendary Super Saiyan of legend or anything like that they were all accustomed to from childhood. No, this was something else. The group witnessed Bardock's hair change from a jet black tone, not to gold or yellow, but a more pinkish red hue. His well-defined muscles shrunk slightly, becoming leaner, and him possessing a more slender frame. Odd, the scouters were all pinging like crazy, registering that Bardock's power level had reduced to 0. It was as if all the readings were saying that he no longer existed. When the energy ring had faded entirely, everyone let go, and Bardock started to walk around the area, trying to get a feel for whatever this power had mustered. Seripa checked the scouter again, perhaps thinking it had been maybe damaged during the energy transfer. Still saying 0, boss. What kind of light show is that? Bardock was getting angry at this news. So basically, this premonition was nothing more than a gimmick and it made him weaker?
Use the power, Bardock,
said the voice. Shut up! Screamed Bardock, him being sick and tired of hearing that stupid voice. He let out a huge wave of cosmic force which not only sparked massive torrents of wind to come into muster, but it also flattened everything within a half a mile of them. All of the hills and all of the mountains, they had been reduced to piles of rock. Well, okay, I know hills and mountains are technically piles of rock, but you get the idea. Flattened. Bardock's squad had barely been able to remain in place, whereas Raditz and Gine had been sent flying thanks to the blast. Bardock, without thinking, sensed that they were in danger and instantaneously flew toward them and caught them before they hit the ground. Gine and Bardock's eyes met and a spark of awe flickered in the former's expression. What are you? He put them down and tried to understand what indeed he was.
I don't know, but this power, I can't explain it. It's something else.
But every attempt to force himself to learn it was coming up with bupkis.
Where's that stupid voice when you need it?
Gine hugged him.
It's okay, Bardock. Whatever this is, it's remarkable.
No other Saiyan can do it.
That makes you special.
Bardock smiled, but tried to keep his cool in front of his crew. It was almost like he were internally going,
"Oh, stop it, you."
Meanwhile, on the outer regions of the universe, on an upside-down pyramid world, a cat and an angel were busy having breakfast when a wave of energy cascaded over them.
Whis, can you feel that?
Whis looked up from his crossword. That? Oh yes, what of it? Having placed his plate of milk down on the table, the purple cat stood up. He was trying to fathom the source of this sensation.
It felt like God Key.
Yes, replied Whis.
Don't you get it? God Key on my home turf that I don't recognize. That is not natural, Whis, and far too soon. Fish! Get in here!
Moments later, a fish in a bowl and a stick emerged from around a corner and tentatively bowed to the cat.
That thing you predicted earlier, that Super Saiyan God, when was it supposed to resurface exactly?
The fish pondered about this.
About 39 years hence. What of it?
Right, well,
I think you got your timings a bit wrong. 39 years wrong!
The oracle fish gulped and begged for mercy. Forgiveness, even.
Oh, relax, will you? At least you got the prediction right. I think. Whis, call that Frieza up and tell him to hold off on the destruction of Planet Vegeta, will you? I want them alive for now. That, and I want to see that tyrant scared. It's always fun seeing him act so paranoid.
At once, Lord Beerus. Shall I set up a live feed of this Saiyan for your interest?
Wait, you can do that, replied Beerus.
Oh yes, one of the many things that we attendants are capable of. You just didn't ask.
Well, fine, do it. I'm bored with the current TV package we have anyway. Wake me up when it's good to go.
With that, Beerus went off for his brief snooze. And when I say brief, it was more like a couple of months. In said months, something changed on the planet. Bardock had been unable to tap into that pinkish red power since that day when he had held hands and leveled a stretch of the planet. But other things had been just as impactful. In those months since that happened, Bardock could swear that something was watching him. And not the guy who was in his head. Something else altogether. But it felt very fuzzy and it was hard to pinpoint. Little did he know though that it was Whis' means of spying on him that he could feel. Thanks to the infusion of God Ki, Bardock had acquired a slight ability to sense things to do with the divine. But he had no idea of this since he had no clue about Super Saiyan gods or God Ki or anything to do with that whole shebang. To him, it was just some kind of thing that he could feel. But there had been many good things going on in the background. He felt a lot stronger since that day. His power level had increased to 20,000 after he had turned pinkish red, and Frieza had become less invested in Planet Vegeta as well. In reality, since being told to back off by Whis and Beerus, Frieza was too nervous to poke that beehive. And thusly, he shifted his attentions to matters elsewhere, yes. As a result, Bardock's squad had had less work to do, and were free to help out with efforts around home. Sure, it meant less money, but it meant more freedom and less scrutiny from the Empire, which wasn't a bad thing. That was always a good thing, in fact, in a Saiyan's book. However, all of this did lead to one thing that was less than great happening. Bardock had been summoned to the king's throne room. Word had gotten around that Bardock's power had now surpassed the rulers, and he wanted to test it for himself. Bardock usually knew how things worked around here, and this wasn't going to be a friendly encounter. This was going to be a means to undermine him perhaps, or worse, end him. Or even worse, drag his family into it. When Bardock eventually locked eyes with the king, the latter looked cruelly in his direction.
20,000, eh?
The strongest a Saiyan has ever been, and it wasn't from a Saiyan elite. How did you come across this power, low-class runt? Bardock shrugged. I held hands in a circle and here I am. The king slammed his fist on the arm of his throne.
Don't you talk to me like that, lowlife!
What? I'm only telling you the truth. Some voice in my head told me to hold hands in a circle and it would stop Frieza somehow. So I did. Where's Frieza? Out of your hair. You're welcome. The king scowled, but had to admit that he wasn't wrong. Frieza had been less communicative as of late and not been bugging him.
But that does not explain how you got this power, and how you intend to use it, or whether you can be trusted with it.
Excuse me, retorted Bardock, nervously. I could kill you right now if I wanted to. But I don't want to. Surely that would be all the trust you need, right? Your grace? The throne room murmured with harried tones at the tenacity and the audacity of Bardock's comments. The king, though, wasn't scared.
That is until Lord Beerus showed up. Hello, you!
Shouted the cat. The king's face immediately changed from contempt to utter horror.
Lord Beerus!
King Vegeta rushed to Beerus' feet and bowed profusely at them.
Good. You're getting quicker at that, King Vegeta. But I'm not here to speak with you. I'm here to speak with that one.
He pointed to Bardock.
This one's of interest to me. You are to let him accompany me. Yes, Lord Beerus. And what Lord Beerus?
Bardock was confused throughout, though. Who was this guy to make King Vegeta, one who was known for his power and regality, cower? In any case, it wasn't worth testing this theory, so he chose to comply and follow the cat. You're Lord Beerus, huh? Said Bardock as they walked through the Saiyan castle.
Perceptive, aren't you, Super Saiyan God?
What? I found you much sooner than I thought I would.
Perhaps you might be of some entertainment for me after all. Come, I wish to see what you're made of. You'll return with me to my home at once.
Bardock wasn't sure about this, but before he could say no, a giant blue man with a very interesting coiffure had rounded the corner, asked for his hand, and whisked them away to parts unknown. In the chaos of it all, Bardock was left without a clue as to where he was going and what he was about to do. He had no idea what this could mean, but thankfully, and not to mention conveniently, the voice that had pestered the Saiyan for so long since the Kanassans gifted him the power, emerged to provide some much needed context.
At last, I have found you, Bardock. My work is done.
Done? Thought Bardock. What do you mean? You better explain to me what I've been through, got myself into, or maybe, help me for once.
There is little you can actually do to me, but since my mission has been fulfilled, I shall humor you with at least some idea as to what you will be in for.
That doesn't sound good, responded Bardock. The voice then whisked Bardock's mind away from the present situation of looking at an angel's back. I mean, holding said angel's back was already kind of trippy, and then being hurtled through the cosmos at an infinity miles an hour. But Bardock found himself gazing at a figure, which kind of looked like King Vegeta in terms of a silhouette. Red, too, the same pinkish red hue that his hair had been that one time. But the rest of the form was just nothing. It was flat.
What are you?
Shouted Bardock in his corporeal form.
I am Yamoshi, the original Super Saiyan God.
The original? You mean that legend is true as well? The form nodded.
Correct. And for your own curiosity, that other legend is also true, but that is for your son to discover.
What?
Spluttered Bardock in a fit of bewilderment. He was then being thrown a lot of information, and he could barely make heads or tails of it.
Thanks to your gift of the mind, I was able to tap into your energy and provide you the clues to access this brand new power. The power that I used to try and hold back the evil Saiyans that plagued our society eons ago.
Evil Saiyans? Were you successful?
No, we lost. Quite badly, in fact.
So much for your might then. If you lost, what can this offer me?
Bardock, enough!
Roared the entity that was known as Yamoshi.
This power has already saved your race from destruction. Had I not intervened, planet Vegeta was destined to be destroyed by the creature you know as Frieza.
Bardock thought about this for a second. In the very early days of his clairvoyancy, he had seen the planet blow up, but he hadn't taken it seriously. Frieza would have needed them, surely the Saiyans. They were too useful to erase from existence, right? Yamoshi continued.
Lord Beerus, the cat that found you, wishes to test your might. Learn what you can, and maybe the Saiyans will never again be at the mercy of that tyrant. Saiyans may one day be free. This is where I leave you, Bardock. I can no longer contact you. The powers that be had permitted me to give you this warning, but nothing more. It is up to you now to acclimate to the power and show that Beerus what for. Perhaps in the future we may meet again, but for now, do this for the glory of the Saiyan race.
And with that, Yamoshi's figure and voice faded away, and Bardock's vision was restored to the sight of Whis' back as they were soon approaching their home. Beerus had noted that Bardock hadn't talked all that much on their trip there.
Well, you seem to be quite mute for us, Saiyan. Usually I can't shut you up.
What? Muttered said Saiyan. He hadn't been really registering anything what Beerus had said, but that honestly didn't matter. They had arrived on his planet. Well, I say planet. It was more like a world rather than a physical and spherical planet that Bardock was used to. It looked more like an upside-down pyramid. But this is where he would set up shop for the time being anyway, so it didn't really matter. As long as he could breathe and there was food around, whatever. In the days that followed, Bardock was assessed by Beerus and found to be woefully lacking in power. The cat was extremely frustrated with the meagre energy on hand, and the lack of the form that he had been told existed by his attendant. And usually Whis wouldn't make things up like that. However, this was something also that the Oracle Fish had prophesied, and if it were to be the challenge that he had longed for ever since he became a god of destruction, he would be willing to wait. How long for, though, was a complete mystery at this time. To encourage this monkey to play ball, Beerus would dangle the fate of the Saiyans over his head all the time.
Your performance here is directly linked to the future of your people. Failure to improve or satisfy my expectations will lead to their destruction. After all, I am the destroyer of this realm, and I have no qualms in enacting my power at the slightest displeasure of mine. Do I make myself clear, Saiyan? You are here on my terms.
Bardock had been used to the pressure out in the field and so steadily nodded. But internally, he was bricking it. Whis could tell how much this unnerved the Saiyan, but respected his resolve at the feet of Lord Beerus, essentially the most destructive being in the universe, and Bardock was handling himself well. He hadn't been told the existence of other universes though, the Saiyan. It probably would have broken his tiny monkey mind. The first thing to do was to teach Bardock how to use the power that was the Super Saiyan God after having acquired it. Since he had now been infused and subjected to God Ki, Bardock now had a level of affinity with it, and could vaguely sense energies without the need of a scouter. He had been relieved of it not longer after her arriving with Whis, deeming it as a foolish and emasculating device. You needn't rely on machinery, Bardock, and instead focus on yourself as the more reliable means of diffusing action. Bardock didn't really know what he was getting on about, but he was keen to learn more about his newfound power and what this power could mean for his people. Not to mention the fact that he couldn't just walk away from this training or else planet Vegeta would be wiped clean away from existence. Beerus had demonstrated his destroyer powers on many rocks and items to him. They would be there one moment and the next, gone. This wasn't just blowing something up. This was more like wiping things away, like they never existed in the first place. With this motivator, Bardock was soon able to regain the form of Super Saiyan God, with Whis teaching him along the way about how to tap into more of it. His power was increasing dramatically with every single day. With Bardock starting to master the power of the Super Saiyan God, Beerus was ever more curious to test his might. But every time he did, Bardock would be immediately toppled over like a pile of bricks. Seriously? Had Whis lost his edge or something?
What good are you then? If you cannot provide me a challenge, then what?
Lord Beerus, please try to think laterally. If Bardock cannot fight you yet, then perhaps his uses could be for other things? Beerus pondered those words for a moment, but then he understood.
Oh, yes, that's a good idea, Whis. Come, Saiyan, we're going to meet your old boss.
Bardock wasn't sure who he was talking about specifically, but it soon would become clear. The next day, Beerus took Bardock to visit Frieza. Bardock was dumbfounded as to why he would do something so reckless as bringing him to Lord Frieza and meeting face to face. But Beerus brushed his concerns aside.
Please, Saiyan, I don't like your race all that much, but I like this piece of work's race even less. If you cannot beat me in a battle, then you may have some other use for the time being.
That use turned out to be in the form of Beerus's stick. At the sight of this Saiyan, Frieza laughed and wondered if Beerus had considered acquiring them as pets like he had done. But when Bardock was ordered to transform, Frieza's tone immediately fell silent.
The legend? Why? Why do you bring this monstrosity to my home, Lord Beerus?
I think you know why. You're starting to wander into my line of work a little too often. You mortals should not be getting ideas above your station, or else you will witness what I can do when I wander into your line of work. Go on, show him, Saiyan.
And Bardock, expecting not to be all that strong, rushed Frieza and punched Frieza in the gut with all of his strength, because he really kind of wanted to. But he thought it would do nothing. Wrong. It tore a hole right through Frieza's stomach, sending the Emperor reeling to the floor in agony. Beerus's eyes widened.
Whoa there! A little extreme, eh, Bardy?
Bardock was stunned. He hadn't tested his might against anyone other than Beerus and Whis for the last few months, since he had been carted away to their homeworld. But now he just one-shotted the Emperor, the strongest being he had previously known. Fortunately, the minions of Frieza were ready and whisked their leader away to his private medical pod to recover, shooting Bardock and Beerus horrified looks. But the cat chuckled to himself.
Goodness, that'll keep him in line for a while. Not bad, Saiyan. You please me with your gusto. You must have hated him a lot.
Bardock was anxious.
What makes you so sure that Frieza won't just go and destroy planet Vegeta in revenge for what I just did?
Beerus wasn't worried in the slightest.
Easy. Do what you just did to him again. As you'll soon discover, we godly beings need not fret about such things like tact or repeating ourselves. And whilst your godly powers are lacking in comparison to mine, you still possess them. We're done here. Let's go.
With that, the three of them headed for home. Bardock was left feeling very torn. It was becoming increasingly obvious that Beerus was starting to see him less and less like a proper challenge like he had originally proposed, or even as a warrior. No, he was starting to see Bardock as nothing more than a toy, or some kind of pet that he would like to wheel out and scare defiant beings into submission. Wait a minute. That sounded oddly familiar. That was exactly what Frieza did. He used the Saiyans as his pets to scare worlds into doing his bidding. Wow. Out of the frying pan and into an identical frying pan, as it was turning out to be. The voice that had abandoned Bardock all those years ago returned to see in abject horror what Bardock had become. Granted, he was pleased to see that the Saiyans survived Beerus' beatings for this long, but he was horrified to see that he had been reduced to being no more than a weapon, rather than something akin to a worthy fighter.
My friend, I had no idea that this would happen. Forgive me for leaving you in such dire straits,
said Yamoshi in Bardock's mind one morning.
Yeah, ain't happening. You're lucky too. Beerus is in a major food coma right now. He'll be out for a couple of years probably. Means I got time to find a way to get out of here. You know, go see my family. And anyway, aren't your powerful beings worried sick of you visiting me? They can go to hell for all I care right now. Bardock, I should have done this right from the beginning. I had no idea that this cat god would use you in such an embarrassing and un-Saiyan-like manner. I am sorry. Permit me to enter your body fully and imbue you with my godly energy. Bardock grimaced and clenched his fist. Wait, you could do that? Why didn't you do that to begin with? You could have helped me out here! Whatever. Don't bother. You're just taking pity on me. Not so. I was too nervous of my own entities. But now, thanks to you, I have realized that we Saiyans should not be beholden to anyone. Now come, let us work together and show these gods what we can do as a race. Bardock smirked. Fine, but you better not take control of my mind, got it? Your mind is yours. I shall merely guide your body through what you're about to face.
And with that, Bardock could feel a sudden surge of energy coursing through his veins. Yamoshi, or what was left of him, the original Super Saiyan God, was now part of his consciousness. But Bardock was in charge of the show. And what a show it would be. It was becoming clear how much of a boost this was when Whis trained with Bardock the next day. He could tell that Bardock had improved, even though he was still nothing in comparison to the Angel, but the deity still had to try a little more than before, than yesterday. Nothing that will topple him, no, but it was an improvement. Well done, Bardock. We can now escalate our training. Lord Beerus will be most pleased once he wakes up. Bardock was stoked, realizing the potential of this boost in power. Alright, yeah. No longer would Beerus use him as his plaything. And better news, that 2-year catnap I mentioned turned into something more akin to something like a 25-year catnap. Beerus had overslept. Whis had forgotten to wake him up because he was so inspired by Bardock. And he'd also been keeping an eye at Bardock's request on his boys. Both of them were still alive. Frieza hadn't touched Planet Vegeta since that day Bardock had paid a visit, and in fact, his grasp on it was lesser than ever. It was barely present, in fact. He may as well have just been fully autonomous, Planet Vegeta. The new king, King Vegeta IV, had more power than any monarch had since King Cold darkened their doorsteps. And this led to the Saiyan homeworld regaining even more of its autonomy. Good. Now to finish this rise to glory here. Beerus woke up and was blissfully unaware of his late wake-up call. After all, since destroyers were immortal, 25 years didn't matter, it was a drop in the bucket. He had worried, though, that Bardock could have possibly died of old age while he was asleep, but Whis had taken care of that. He had provided Bardock some magical boosts to slow down the aging process for him whilst he was a student of Lord Beerus. Because if he did well, who knows? He maybe could become a candidate for Beerus' replacement, should that occur. It would be a waste otherwise, Whis thought. Beerus, sure enough, challenged Bardock, expecting him to win handily in a few seconds as always, but this wouldn't be the case today. No. A quarter of a century of uninterrupted training had led to that form. The form that Beerus loathed and barely had a handle on. In that time, Bardock had mastered Alter Instinct. Yes, I know you might think this is dumb, but this isn't April Fool What If, and also Goku learnt this in 2 years. So 25 years, that's not an issue. With the combined efforts of Bardock and Yamoshi's energy, Bardock gave Beerus a run for his money. Yes, Bardock wasn't completely trouncing him, but he was making the cat have to put in some kind of effort. And Whis was finding this all rather enjoyable and took precautions so as to not jeopardize the structural integrity of their domicile. With all of its training behind him, Bardock's urge to win was more powerful than ever. Yamoshi's driving energy had faded away through osmosis, and essentially, the two were the same being now. With this leveling of the playing field, Bardock would no longer allow Beerus to treat him as his lapdog. And when that battle ended, Beerus calling it because he didn't want to lose, the cat was pleased.
Well, well, you finally came good with your claim.
I didn't claim anything. I just found myself with these powers, but whatever. That's kind of fun.
Alright then, you finally scratched my itch. You may go.
Bardock was puzzled. Where would he go? Does that mean I'm never allowed to return? Oh, no, don't be ridiculous. Not if I ever say it. Besides, Lord Beerus is very forgetful. He will challenge you again when he's bored, which will be quite frequently. But for now, I'll return you to planet Vegeta so you may be with your kind. Here, he gave Bardock a communicator. When the time comes, I shall call you. Keep training, Bardock. I expect that we may be working together more closely someday. Bardock chose not to pry and instead let Whis take him home. When he returned, he reunited with his family and told them everything in regard to his training and how it may benefit them all in the long run. It had been several years since Whis had returned Bardock to the Saiyan realm, promising to return once Beerus wanted another challenge. The angel expecting the cat to take fighting more seriously and have the desire to train and master his Hakai powers and then being revived. But it hadn't happened, at least not right away. For now, the attendant didn't want to bother Bardock and his reacclimation to Saiyan society. After being pounded left, right and centre by Beerus for ages, and made to feel quite small, albeit through hard work, by Whis, the intimidation factor of a Saiyan monarch now was small fry. After all, he was the Super Saiyan God Bardock. Why should he have to listen and fear the likes of this king? Besides, he was not about to accept being yet another trinket of a despot who was wheeled out on special occasions to do the bidding of someone else. You got two choices, king. You have the option of sitting on your throne and waiting for the good news like a good boy, or you can follow my lead and witness glory for yourself. Your legacy secure for eternity. Don't you worry. Don't let your stupid Saiyan pride get in the way of common sense. Your Grace. Vegeta grumbled something, but he had to weigh up the cold, harsh reality of this opportunity. So he went with it. Bardock would go on to lead the Saiyan charge, with King Vegeta by his side, and of course his two sons, Kakarot and Raditz. After some brief training, the Saiyan forces were emboldened to tear apart the Empire bit by bit, Bardock barely having to use a fraction of his new power to cause terrific amounts of destruction. He would save that for the big guns. However, with the influence of Yamoshi behind him, even though he hadn't promised to interfere directly, the Saiyans would not bring bystanders into this, nor kill innocents. No, this was a mission to bring Frieza down and his army. King Vegeta loathed this sense of mercy. This was not like how Saiyans should act, but Bardock was in charge for this outing, and in time, my friends, he will make sure it stays that way. Over just a few short weeks, Frieza's empire was completely eviscerated, and Frieza himself saw who was leading it. That Bardock. The one who had whipped upside his head years ago with one punch, looking more horrific than ever. He fled. He fled to the farthest corners of the galaxy, to a place called Vampa. But Bardock found him anyway, and ripped him apart. Not to mention finding two lone Saiyans there to boot, named Paragus and Broly. The deity took them in, returned them to planet Vegeta, and laid down the rules for them. King Vegeta was to be trusted, no matter what past transgressions Paragus had had with his father. The Saiyans' return to glory must be assured, and I will make sure of it. Vegeta IV was given his keys back, figuratively, and Bardock simply left. However, he made it clear that he would be watching the monarch to ensure that the empire he would forge would not be nearly as tyrannical as the one that had preceded it. The short stack took this to great heart. Gine was simply happy that her family was strong and that Bardock was out there, untouchable and glorious. He had met up with her and rekindled their relationship, but Bardock knew his place in the universe was far beyond that of this world now. Saiyans had to evolve without him, but thanks to his oversight on this day, their future looked bright. Ideally as a less barbaric iteration of their previous tenure. You do realize that your loved ones will die, and all those you care about will cease to exist. I mean, I can prolong your life, but... Bardock held his hand up. Whis, I'll wait. I need something to do around here anyway. He smirked. And they got down to business, waiting for the day when Beerus would once again face his